Hello, welcome to Tarot and Attachment. I'm Erin Smith, and I am going to be taking this opportunity to look at the themes that might be emerging in the week ahead. This is the week of September 30th through October 6th. We're actually going to be having a new moon solar eclipse on Tuesday, so that might influence some of the energies that are coalescing. But let's take a look at what the cards have to say about what would be most beneficial for us to know, understand, or do in order to make the most of this week. So I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to go silent. I'm going to concentrate while I shuffle, and I will be with you momentarily. I'm just going to say a prayer over these cards. Hmm. Hmm. So, in terms of this poll, it looks like uh, there's going to be some sort of transformative moment that arises out of the chaos and confusion of shifting circumstances. So, here we have the Five of Wands, and wand energy is really representative of life force, chi, uh, the energy that we use in order to identify what it is that we're passionate about, what gives us some sense of creative fulfillment, what we wish to create, and then kind of the motivation and energy in order to take action around that. And the Five of Wands is sort of like a discombobulated energy. It can look like being pulled in multiple directions at once. It can be a kind of turbulence. Sometimes it manifests in the form of arguments or strife. But in some ways, the energy is upset and not aligned. And of course, there are a multitude of reasons for why this might be the case. And, the ways in which that can manifest for us personally varies. But think of it this way, there's a lot of energy and it hasn't quite found its own direct route yet. And typically the Five of Wands can feel sort of unsettling. We mostly like to have a kind of a clear course of action. We like to feel directed in the way that we move about the world, and the things that we feel passionate about, like, have a very distinct way of approaching that and bringing that into being. And this may feel like all over the place. So, you know, this discomfort, in fact, I think it's sort of an important point to make, that when we are looking at, the seasons of life or the different situations that we can experience as human beings, you know, discomfort is a big part of the process of being human. And inevitably, most of us try to avoid that discomfort at all costs. In fact, there are a lot of things that we do as people to avoid. We can just get lost in addictions. That's one that I'm familiar with, right? That, to check out, to numb that overwhelming sensation. And there are a lot of different ways that we can do that, right? People often think about substances when you're thinking about addictions, and yet, you can get lost in a relationship. You can be in a kind of codependent relationship where your obsession with somebody else takes you out of yourself, and that you're not really aware of that kind of discomfort or discombobulation that's going on within. We can get lost in our jobs. We can be, compulsive gamblers. We can binge watch TV shows. There are so many ways that we as humans seek to avoid that sensation of discomfort. And yet, oftentimes, that's a necessary stage of development, that in order for us to change or shift or move into a new place in life, we often have to become so uncomfortable with the conditions that we're actually willing to take action that will result in a different thing. So as much as nobody kind of willingly wants to show up for discomfort, paying attention to it, being with it, choosing not to avoid it or to try to escape it can actually be incredibly beneficial. And so what I would suggest is to notice the areas of life right now that don't feel aligned, that feel agitating. And again, this could be in terms of relationships too. What relationships don't feel supportive? Where is there a lot of unnecessary conflict? And pay attention, get curious about it, notice it. Is there anything that can be done about that? Is there anything that you're being called to tend to in a different way? Because ultimately, what Spirit is saying is that this is a moment of transformation. So judgment is rebirth. It's the phoenix rising from the ashes. And ultimately, what this is saying is that this is an opportunity to rise above, to transcend old patterns, to acknowledge what isn't working or doesn't feel comfortable, and to shift it, to move it in a major way. So you can think of this almost, in fact, if we're thinking in terms of alchemy. In order to distill out the impurities, you have to turn up the heat. You have to raise the temperature, boil the elements, and then they start to separate out from one another. And in a way, you can think of that's what's happening here. There's a fire being lit, and it's causing this discomfort, and it's fragmenting things in our life. And what this is doing is it's allowing us to see things more clearly, to get the bird's eye view on our situation, and to notice the things that aren't working and to extricate ourselves from that in a good way, rather than through avoidance, through direct contact with that discomfort and making a clear choice about the direction that we wish to move in. And, the after effects of that, according to this poll, can be quite profound. It can allow us to step into a more powerful position in our own lives based on an authentic expression of who we truly are. So let's start with the sun. The sun is this distilled expression of your joy, of that which is most alive within you. And you can think of the sun as being like uncensored self-expression. It's relinquishing all self-consciousness so that you can just come from this place of being who you truly are. And ultimately, what Spirit is saying is that when we are willing to tap into this within ourselves, when we are willing to return to the state of the blissful child, that we are nurturing the child within and allowing that child full creative expression, then the sun promises that we will attract people and opportunities that allow us to shine even brighter. The sun is the celebrity card. And ultimately, this is about being seen and being celebrated for who we truly are. And again, what is sort of being highlighted here is that we're letting go of this need to try to fit ourselves into inauthentic spaces. And by moving away from that, we're able to express ourselves more freely. And with that comes a certain amount of mastery, authority, being in a position of leadership, being able to practice volition, to make choices in our lives, to govern our own lives in a way that's in alignment with this higher expression of ourselves. And, what I would say about the emperor is that the emperor is the highest law in the land. What he decrees is made so. And ultimately, how can one be a benevolent leader in their own lives? What can we do to inspire in others the ability to make choices that are in right alignment, and to be an example of what it looks like and feels like to step into a position of personal power, where it doesn't feel like we're being tossed around by conditions that feel ill-fitting, right? And so then the result is ultimately with the King of Pentacles, King energy is very similar to the Emperor. But in this case, the Pentacles are sort of an acknowledgement that in this sort of alchemization of ourselves, where we're distilling out the parts of ourselves that are that don't work, these old patterns, these old ways of living that cause more friction or conflict. And we're in a position where we can see it clearly and let it go and rise above, that we can come out as more true expressions of ourselves, which then allows us to make choices that land properly, and that these have real material consequences. So pentacles are often associated with money and career and finance. Only you can even think about money as being a signifier for the materialization of elements in our lives that we need in order to thrive as embodied beings. So you can think of this as just being fully resourced. The King of Pentacles is fully resourced. He has the ability to care for himself in all the ways that we need to as human beings in order to feel that sense of wealth and well-being. And so ultimately, this is like maybe a week where we can make real progress and move forward and step into a position where it's just much easier to take care of ourselves in a good way. And that in doing so, we are freeing ourselves from some of that friction that may have felt really uncomfortable leading up to this transition. So I hope that that message is useful to all of you, and I am wishing you many blessings in this week ahead, and pay attention to what's coming up for you right now and think about how it is that you might wish to respond. Okay, many blessings.